You're such an asshole.
Yeah, so consulting. If you have questions, I have answers. As long as you got money. Links to all my other cool shit down below, including books on IQ, books on retirement planning, books on what you should have done before retirement planning, like not majoring in stupid shit so you can actually retire and not be a boomer. Books that made fun of the boomers, saying, it's too late for you now. But for the rest of you, it's not. Oh, wait, you millennials are pretty screwed too. Never mind. Hey, Captain, you've stated several times that people are the most important part of your life. What the hell is that? But today I see that the majority of people value materialistic things more than their fellow human beings to the detriment of everyone. Could that be linked to our intelligence? Yes. It can be linked, doesn't fully explain, I'd say. But yeah, I would also say it's survival and skyrocketing through Maslow's hierarchy of needs and debt. People are programmed and brainwashed to spend money and want things. And they could have all the things in the world, all their basic necessities. You really only have to work 10 hours a week in this world if you want just your basic necessities. And then you have freedom to go and make friends and do that. The problem is everybody falls for the brainwashing because they're not smart enough to think this through. They load up on debt, they get the greatest, latest car, they get the designer degree, they get their designer mental illness, and they just spend, and they borrow other people's money and spend. And so they never get past Maslow's hierarchy of needs of safety, security, eating, and biological needs, and career and profession to a point like, well, what's really important in life? Do I want to get married? What is the meaning of life? They never get that. They never get there. All they're thinking about is like, dang, I need to make more money. Shit, well, I need to make more money instead of spend less. And if so, should we concentrate all of our efforts to raise the future generation's IQ? Do you think that we'll ever be able to significantly raise everyone's IQ, or do you think that we've achieved a plateau? Oh, we do. Just give that up. Again, this paralleling this conversation, similar conversation, is how much in energy, resources, money, and budgets go into training women to be supportive, caring wives and mothers versus, so add up all the money and the resources. Maybe some churches talk about it. Maybe moms who are traditional or grandmothers talk about it. Maybe there's one or two books written about it. Then you compare that to the literal trillions of dollars that have been spent through K through college, not K through 12, K through college, at least in part. I know not all the classes that are given to young ladies is all about, you don't need no man, fish, bicycle. But how much of a budget between education, government, marketing, advertising, movies, Hollywood, media, goes at books, seminars, time and all the money, add that up and you're in the trillions of dollars. And it's the same thing here. How many trillions of dollars goes into getting people to spend their money on shit and value material things, or their politics, or their religion, or some bullshit, instead of loving their fellow man, or finding a quality person? I don't know what the hell that is. What is that? Is that a hummingbird? Hang on, that's going to be annoying as hell.
Get out of here.
Had no idea what that was. All right, anyway. I scurried it away. So, if you ask if it's possible, no, because we spend the budget to keep people materialists enslaved to their debts consumers dwarfs any kind of eccentric, rare, truly high IQ, deep philosophical argument, a la Molyneux, a la myself, a la, Dave Ramsey and other people who focus more on family and loving the individual. It dwarfs us. It dwarfs us. And so it's not possible. I would also argue that to really get to the point, it's not only intelligence. It requires fiscal discipline. It requires enough economic opportunity and success that you're not worried. I mean, like, if you can't eat, you're not going to worry about, well, geez, what is, can I find true intellectual camaraderie? You're like, damn, I got to eat. So you need to have some modicum of income. You need to have your basic levels met, and then you could start looking for friends and companionship. Then your mind will be relaxed and freed of all these worries and concerns. And then you could start looking for the love of your fellow man and human. The problem is, you still then need a pretty high IQ to do that. And if you look at people coming out of college and modern day people today who are still in their 30s, you take a look at the millennials, there are many intelligent, high IQ millennials. There is. A lot of them are very educated. To finish college nowadays, I know it's not what it used to be, but it still takes some effort. So you got a lot of people with 110, 120 IQs, which is smarter than average. I'm thinking it's not smart enough. You need to be really, really, really fucking smart to sit down and ponder and say, what is really the meaning? And to understand it as well, I think on an intuitive level, like if somebody's child dies, no matter what their IQ, they're going to cry. Maybe they can't articulate it, why that is. Well, because humans are the most important thing, and that was more important to you than any Ferrari, But you need not only the income, but you also need a pretty high IQ. That's just my speculation. And so the statistics are also not there. So you have huge budgets brainwashing people to not think about the love of their fellow man. Not everybody makes a lot of money. Not everybody's a minimalist, so that they don't need that much money to get beyond those Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then most people just aren't smart enough. And so, no, it's not going to happen. We could argue there's ways to raise the IQ of society, but that is ceteris paribus in lab conditions. You look at just how much money is spent to keep you people stupid. There's no way. Dude, we can make Curse of the High IQ, or not Curse of the High. We could. Okay, let's say that. We could make it mandatory reading, which would be a multi-million-dollar godsend to me. That's not going to outdo the very next class they take and the commercials showing, a really cool car. It's just not going. Society is not capable of that. I've discovered an interesting scientist from the USSR named Shavla Aminoshvili, who founded an experimental school in Georgia, the country, not, I guess that'd be the Soviet state back in the 60s, and is honored with several awards for his work. He created a school with a focus on educating and raising children humanely, meaning parents were instructed to not rear children nor curse in their presence, but rather encourage positive emotions and good morals. I would disagree with that. In addition, the teachers were given a special curriculum to teach accelerated learning and remove the individual grading scale. The curriculum was an antithesis to our current authoritarian education system. I would disagree. Right now, there are no standards, and we do not spank the children, and we do not discipline them. First results showed the first grade students were remarkably learning the third grade subjects with success towards the end of their senior year in high school. The students were excelling in graduate university subjects and all scored an extremely high IQ. Unfortunately, the school was deemed a failed experiment and shut down immediately after the follow-up on the students. The outcome was that most students could not integrate into the average society and either succumbed to suicide or some other unnatural death. The school's founder confessed in one of his conferences that a former student who became an architect died of a sudden heart attack when he was death-threatened for not accepting a bribe to write off governmental spending. I suppose his psyche couldn't handle the cruelty in today's world. So what are your thoughts? Well, there's already going to be friction if you are aberrant from society and too far of an extreme on any regard. Like, for example, in school I was very small. So of course everyone would pick on fights with me. And I remember another thing would be fashion, of all things. I'll never forget, because we could only have Velcro shoes. That's what we could afford. And I got picked on and got in fights because they weren't Nike high tops. And people, come on, why don't you like society? What is like baseball bats in everyone's face for everyone. So that's an example of fashion. That's an example of height. You could be freakishly tall. Look at women. If they're too tall, they can't find guys. They just can't. If you're too skinny, you're too fat, you're not going to attract anyone. What else? If you go you can be taller, you can be shorter, you can be richer, you can be poorer. But if you go 2 or 3 standard deviations, all of a sudden you're aberrant to a point that society is not going to get along with you and may even attack you and ostracize you, of which there was no such thing. IQ happens to be one of these variables. It just happens to be one of these variables. If you get too smart, okay, sure, then you're called Poindexter in school. And you want to see humanity at its core level, look at public schools. Look at how kids pick on each other. That's without any regulation, that's with no threats. It's amazing what happens when you turn down to be an adult and your job and your criminal history depends on whether or not, and then all of a sudden that goes away. It's very interesting. But society will pick on you in terms of intelligence when you're younger because you're a Poindexter. If you're stupid, you're the dunce. Or at least they did in the olden days. But then when you get out, a lot of it is not even intentional or conscious. It's just you go into an interview and you use words that the HR ditz doesn't know. Or more commonly, you go into an interview and you're a STEM guy and you're talking to Tina, the 24-year-old bimbo. She doesn't know what SQL is. She doesn't know what integral calculus is. She doesn't know what an alpha is, not alpha male, alpha, the financial measure. And so you're going to get discriminated there. I've talked about it in Curse of the High IQ, and per your topic of conversation, if you get too smart, there's not a lot of people you can talk to. You're not going to find a lot of friends. Women, in particular, it sounds good on paper, but you're the one hot girl in the electrical engineering program, and now you just can't walk in without every guy drooling over you and asking you out every day. Conversely, sometimes there's an advantage. If you're a very intelligent woman, like you're 3 IQs above the norm, there's going to be roughly 3 guys for every girl at that peak and that level. So it's not all bad, but usually there's some kind of static or friction or uphill battle or hurdles if you go too far in either direction. And what I could see here, you could say IQ is one variable, and IQ is adjustable. I know some people say, oh no, your IQ is what it is. And there's there's this core IQ you have. But like working out, you can get a higher IQ. Like my IQ, I'm sure, was way higher when I tested for it, 20 years ago, because I was fresh out of college. I remembered all the math. And now I probably would score a lot less. But if I went back and studied, I could have this IQ once again. How is this damn bird's... So, I think with the studying they had, they probably were testing abnormally high for IQ. What really threw them off, I think, was their socialization. And they weren't part of the standard Soviet mass assembly program. So then they were smarter, they trained their IQs up, they went through a different experience, like my experience in college, which really doesn't have much to do with IQ, working full-time and going to school full-time. Talk to anyone who's done that. They're not going to fit in, and you can't turn off because that's how you got by. The work ethic is almost on autopilot. And everyone else can chill out and relax, and you can't. I'm sure that a lot of that, the same thing here, was like, well, shouldn't we aim for excellence? Why isn't everybody else aiming for excellence? And this was their peer group. And once that peer group separated and went their own ways, fine, they may have had great careers. But they weren't getting the intellectual stimulation or even the social stimulation they were accustomed to having back then. I wonder if you had a question. So yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily cruelty. There is maliciousness and cruelty in the world, and people will, hit the nail with the hammer that sticks out. But a lot of it is just the way society is structured. Your highway system is not designed for awesome drivers like me. It's designed for a wide array of slow morons that sit in the left lane and speed demons that crash their crotch rockets and drive up the insurance rates for everybody else. It's not. Here's another perfect example. This has nothing to do with talent or skill. The highway system is designed for commuters. That's predominantly what it's designed for sheep, to go from the suburb to the city and back. It's not designed for self-employed people who work from laptops. If that was the case, I don't know if there'd be roads. So yeah, I don't know if this was IQ. It was in part IQ, but I bet you their suicides and their failure to adapt to life was other sociological factors as well. So anyway, everybody get the book, Curse with the High IQ, down below. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.